my name is Laura Dillon, and I am the founder of Holistic Life Community. We are located in Wakefield, Massachusetts, and we're a group of holistic professionals that are really passionate about teaching, educating, and showing people how to live a balanced lifestyle. We are excited to be a resource for people to find out about alternative healing modalities that exist. And today I'm excited to share the screen with Christophe Leroy of Sacred Hoop Healing Ways.
Hi, Laura. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Christophe from Sacred Hoop Healing Ways. I've been practicing energy healing and shamanic practices for over 15 years now. Just a bit about my trajectory and my journey. I began when I was living here in the United States. I studied under a number of teachers, including Alberto Villoldo of the Four Winds and Ellen Rosenthal. And I continued my journey of apprenticeship and learning, and as a student of shamanism, both in Mexico and in Peru, directly with shamanic practitioners. One of those is Roberto and his wife Marta, who run Temazcales, the sacred practice of sweat lodges in the Mexican version. And in Peru, I practice with a number of individuals who still to this day see patients and tend to their communities.
Awesome. Well, and Christophe, I trained under you, and I am a shamanic energy healer as well. And we're excited to talk about ancestral healing. So how have you seen ancestral patterns show up for yourself personally and also from your clients?
Well, absolutely. So I would say in the course of client work, it typically comes up as issues that may be related to family dynamics. That's typically the first cue. And so then we can go in a couple of directions. One of those is to try and understand what the client is experiencing based on what the configuration of dynamics is in their family, or in other words, what the constellation of the family unit is like, and that can be extremely revealing. Another way you can go with the work is to ask and inquire about what may the client have inherited, either through their relationship with their mother and the maternal grandparents, or from the father and the paternal grandparents. And so that opens up a different aspect of family healing, which is going up the family tree, so to speak. And that's where we get into this notion of ancestral healing.
So for me personally, I started to get into ancestral healing even before I trained under you. I started researching just my family tree. I was always so fascinated with lineage type stuff and how far I could go back. I remember seeing my grandparents' documents from when they came from Mexico here to the United States. For me personally, I have been impacted by a lot of generational ancestral type of stuff, such as depression, addiction, anxiety. And so I started working on just various energy techniques related to this ancestral healing. So I got trained in a process called the emotion code, which is you use kinesiology or muscle testing, and you have a chart, and you're able to, if you have some physical ailment or some phobia, etc., that you're looking to overcome, you can muscle test and see if there is a specified emotion related to whatever it is you're trying to heal. And then you can figure out, is this mine? Did I inherit it? Is it from my mom's side? Is it from my dad's side? And when I first started to get into this energy work, I kept finding that so much of my depression and these things that I was struggling with didn't start with me. They started multiple generations back. And it really opened up my mindset to these things that I was trying to overcome and struggling with weren't even mine. And I'm trying to heal them without all of the knowledge, I feel like.
And I'm curious, in this work that you did on yourself and with this focus on the family tree, what was maybe one thing that really stood out and surprised you?
Just the level of self-worth issues that have been passed down. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've struggled with, which, drove my depression and all of that. But the other thing is it was coming from both sides. Both my mother and my father struggled with, and the lineages struggled with very similar things. So it really opened up my perspective, and things that perhaps my parents had done that I may had still felt frustrated about or angry about even, it helped me to heal that, because I realized it didn't even start with them, which is so powerful.
So consider this for a moment. On the one hand, you have a maternal lineage. On the other hand, you have a paternal lineage. And so through the generations, there are issues or imprints that may get passed on. And sometimes part of our life journey is helping to heal, resolve, dissolve weights and burdens from past generations. That's one perspective.
Yeah.
Here's another. Here is a woman and all of her lineages, as we just described. And here's a man or another person and all of their lineages, as we just described. And consider for a moment how two lineages, two sets of lineages attract each other through affinities. And two people may come together, not just because of their own affinities at a personal level, but because of the affinities of entire generations with each other. So consider how powerful that attraction can be. And therefore, as in your case, when you're saying, I inherited it from both sides. So maybe part of the purpose of your parents' meeting was for an entire systemic healing to take place.
Yeah.
Not a light burden to carry.
Yeah. No, I just think it's so powerful. And even the Western world is starting to find the scientific evidence behind so much of this genetic ancestral type stuff that gets passed down. So I read an article recently by the BBC that they were studying prisoner of war veterans that were in the Civil War. And what they discovered is that when people have gone through these horrific traumas, their genes get altered, and that enables them to survive. Well, it's that altered gene that gets passed down generation to generation. And in this study, what they found, it wasn't the first generation where this anxiety, this trauma, just constant fear states showed up. It was the second generation that it really started to manifest.
And not just manifest, but probably stayed more ingrained than it would have been, because that second generation forgot or may never have known what two generations ago went through, and that gave rise to this. And so then it becomes embedded and passes on to a third and fourth generation.
Yeah, and this scientific study, it's called epigenetics. And it's so fascinating to me.
So this is part of your personal journey. And how has this translated into your calling to be of service?
Well, again, the ancestral lineage stuff, it's so personal to me because of what I have experienced. But I find it a lot with my clients. They're struggling with specific things, whether it's weight issues or the depression or even addiction. And when I'm working with my clients, sometimes I'll see images of things or feel or sense things, and I'll ask them questions like, did one of your parents struggle with this? And it usually will go back multiple, or I could muscle test and figure out how many generations it went back. And I just think it opens up Pandora's box a little bit because so much of this stuff, these things that we struggle with are not ours. But I really believe it allows for the healing to begin, right? I know we had talked about previous to this call that there's a belief system that these things get passed forward up to 7 generations. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, indeed. I mean, it's powerful. It cuts across multiple generations. This idea of the 7th generation is a principle that comes, among others, from the Iroquois nation. And the way it's formulated there is a sense of personal and community responsibility. So to be conscious that the actions and decisions you take today will have an impact for up to 7 generations after you. I think if we all lived by it, we would be in a different world. And it's, to me personally, it's a very inspiring call. But to go back to your example of the prisoners of war during the US Civil War, you could see how the trauma experienced in one generation may still be carried forward, and maybe we may still be living the effects of it in certain ways today, right. Probably about 7 to 8 generations away.
Yeah. I mean, I think another example personally, my mom was terrified of dogs. Just growing up, we never had animals. She had allergies and stuff too, but I was terrified of dogs growing up as well. And when I first got married, my husband was a huge dog lover, and I knew we would be having dogs. And I was actually okay with it because I didn't want my kids to have that same fear and trauma around dogs. And we ended up having a yellow lab retriever for 16 years that literally changed my life. But I mean, yeah, there's so many things, these patterns, these behaviors, these tendencies that I've seen situations where people didn't even know, like my sister, there were certain relatives that we didn't know, but she's often told that she acts exactly the same way as a great aunt or a great great aunt.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're spending time and implicitly referring to imprints, struggles, things that have been difficult in different generations of our lineage and that may still be present in us today. The other component of what we inherit is also the gifts of the lineage.
Yes.
And the special talents and the special elements that makes our lineage the way it is. Yeah. And in that sense, in my personal case, I reflect on the fact today that I have quite a nomadic existence, and I'm very proud of that word. I'm owning it and I'm living it fully. And I realize that I'm not as original as I think I am sometimes. Both my parents have experienced nomadic lifestyles, with certain frequency and cadence, but across multiple countries over 40 years of moving around. And both my grandparents on the maternal and the paternal side were diplomats. And they also lived this type of nomadic lifestyle where they're moving from one country to another in 3 to 4 year increments. And I would not be surprised if before that there was something similar, even if it took a different name and it wasn't called diplomacy. Right. So some of the gifts that we inherit are also part of this, what comes down through the lineage.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. So one of the reasons why we are coming on today is because we are hosting a retreat in Wakefield, Massachusetts at Holistic Life Community. It's going to be September 30th. It starts on a Friday. We're going to have a fire pit and drumming circle. And then it's going to go through Saturday and Sunday. So it's going to go through October 2nd, 2022. You want to talk a little bit about the retreat, Christophe?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the point of gathering and focusing on our ancestral lineage is really for anybody engaged in personal work, self-discovery, self-consciousness, a valuable starting point is to consider, what are the behaviors, what is the lifestyle that I have, what are the beliefs that I hold, and consider how those play out across a number of important topics, such as love, money, socialization, attitudes towards career, family, and you'll realize that a lot of that comes from your family. And when you consider also what is more difficult in your life, whether that's a wound or a struggle or an addiction or a certain aspect of your life that is just really challenging for you, you may also be surprised to discover how that may come through either the paternal or the maternal lineage. In other words, taking the time and space to focus on your personal process, your healing, may open the door to a much larger healing, which is healing and bringing balance and harmony back to an entire family system, to an entire part of your family tree, or indeed both lineages. So that's the invitation, is to come, join us, be in a safe space, held by collective energy, to take a deep dive into some of these issues and feel the personal benefit of it as well as the family benefit.
And there's something that's so powerful about healing these, all of these emotions that can surround it. One of the things that when I'm working on ancestral lineage stuff with my clients that I always have them say when a specific thing comes up is, I have them say, I honor you, ancestors, for what you have been through, the struggles you have been through to give me life, but also accepting and receiving in the gifts that you're giving as well. And it's such a powerful statement when you let go of, you know, why did this thing get passed down? Why does it have to be like this? When you have that anger, that frustration, and learning how to release that and to forgive it, it impacts you in so many ways, you know, your physical body, letting go of those intense emotions. It's so powerful.
It's powerful. It's a release. It's liberating. And in fact, it brings me to reflect on the fact that sometimes there are difficult relationships between you and your mother or your father or a specific family member. And if you take a moment to consider, what did they go through as children with their own parents or their grandparents? That often is the key to unlock what might be going on in the family tree and along the paternal or maternal lineage. So taking the opportunity to revisit some of these issues and struggles is very powerful. And it gets us into a place where we can come to a place of gratitude, appreciation, and being able to honor our roots, our heritage, our language, a sense of where we come from.
Yes, I agree. So anything else, Christophe? Any other last tidbits?
Well, I would just say that we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a safe space. Yeah. It's going to be a community space.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be an opportunity to not just to do personal work, but also to see how the world of energy lives through each and every one of us, and being able to detect how maybe some aspects that our body is expressing, either as pain or discomfort, may in fact be energetic and may in turn come from some of these ancestral issues. So it's also an opportunity from a place of curiosity to kind of play detective and see, what can we do for our family lineages today?
Yeah, and there's something so powerful about being in a group setting, being in a space that's safe, as you mentioned, but allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to be healed, and the camaraderie that you make with these other people, that you experience this kind of once in a lifetime event and retreat together. It's so amazing and magical. And I've done some myself in other areas, and it's just this connection opening up to, it can get emotional too while you're these things, these old stories, these limiting beliefs, these things that come up that are ready to be healed.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do people find out about us? So go to our website, Holistic Life Community /events, and click on September 30th, and you can register for the 3-day retreat weekend in September 30th, 2022 through October 2nd, 2022.
And it'll be in Wakefield, Massachusetts,
Yes.
in Boston area. We look
Yes.
forward to seeing you there. And it's not yet winter, so there's no excuse due to the weather.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.